Did you start the year strong with your training, but it feel like you've lost a bit of momentum after a few months? Or are you at the middle of the year right now and feeling like now is the time to revamp your training, revamp your routine, and really get moving again? Or do you have a big trip coming up in the tail half of the year and you're realizing, look, now I can't really put my training off any longer, and that trip is getting closer and closer? Now, if you answered yes to any of these questions, today's episode is for you. Now, recently, if you've been a long time listener, you might have noticed that my consistency with this podcast has been a little bit up and down. Now, at the start of the year, I started off really, really, really strong with the podcast. I was working through that 20 episode mini series. I was really, really in a good spot with it. I was enjoying those episodes. I was feeling energized. I was feeling pumped up. I was feeling passionate about the podcast. And I felt like I was putting out quality episodes week after week after week through that mini series. But then after a few months, once that mini series was done, I kind of lost momentum with things. I got out the other end of those 20 episodes and I was like, all right, what next? I tried recording a bunch of episodes and I actually did record a bunch, and I've got a bunch, sitting on my computer. But in all honesty, I was reviewing them and I was like, look, I just didn't have a huge amount of spark. I wasn't super interested in those episodes. I was like, they're there, but you know what? I'm not super enthused about them. So I never really released them. And then week after week, I kept on trying to record new episodes, and there was just nothing that was really grabbing me, and it was just a bit of a negative spiral. And then on top of that, after I went through a couple of weeks of this, I was like, you know what? I just don't have this anymore. And I just kind of fell out of the routine of even trying to record things. And ultimately, I lost momentum. I lost consistency. And eventually, I fell right off this podcast. And it was in the back of my mind. I was like, look, I should be doing this. But in all honesty, I was just lost that momentum. And from the last episode, it's really been a few months in between episodes, which isn't amazing. But ultimately, I'm recording this on the 2nd of July. And with the middle of the year here, typically what I would generally do in the middle of the year, I'll do a little review of how things have been going through the year. I'll look back at the last 6 months and be like, all right, this has been good, this has been bad, this has been going happening, or whatever it may be. And I typically do a little bit of a revamp. And I look at the things I've fallen out of. I look at the things that haven't been going so well. And in the middle of the year, I'm like, you know what? Let's get back into the swing of things. And the podcast was something that was on my list. So with July being here and halfway through the year, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get back in the swing of this podcast. I'm going to get back in the consistency. I'm going to get this momentum back and start releasing some really quality episodes. And ultimately, in the last few days, I've been putting together a really, really cool new mini series for you. And it's going to be something that I haven't talked about a huge amount in the past, something I haven't really explored a huge amount in the past, just purely because it's a massive subject, but it's becoming more and more and more popular in the world of hiking. And it's something that I feel like I'm going to do a mini series to cover in detail and give it the context and give it the nuance and give it the conversation it deserves. So in the last few days, I've been hard at work putting this together. Now, this will take a little while to get up and running. And I'm kind of thinking, all right, instead of leaking them out episode after episode, once it's all up and running, I'm just going to let all the episodes out at once. So hopefully sometime soon, you'll have another 20, 30, 40 episode mini-series, depending on how long it goes for. But it'll all just come out in one day and you'll be able to work through things. But I'm really jazzed. I'm really excited. I'm really enthused about getting this coming up. So I just wanted, for starters, give a little bit of update on where we're at. But as I was thinking about all this, and as I was doing my review and getting back into things and looking back at the last 6 months and how my consistency has been a little bit tricky with the podcast, I realized that, in all honesty, this is a really, really parallel story that I hear from a lot of hikers out there with their training. Obviously, I'm talking about the podcast, but for the training, a lot of hikers go through a really similar thing. They start off the new year strong. They come in with these new year resolutions. They have some good consistency, string together a program, start ticking off the sessions, making progress, feeling good, and everything's going well. But then after a few months, things begin to kind of start to slow down, maybe get a little bit hard. Maybe you start getting busy at work and you start skipping a session here to there. Maybe the weather's turned, like in Australia, obviously it started getting cold. Over the States, I know you guys are dealing with a huge amount of hot weather, and that's getting in the way of the sessions. Maybe you start running out of time, or family comes up, or holidays come up, or whatever it may be, and your momentum starts to slow down again. And then more and more things kind of get in the way, and this keeps on happening. And then our training, for a lot of people, it tends to drop off. And ultimately, in the months of April, May, and June, depending on the individual, we can end up being pretty rubbish with our training. Even though we started off so strong in January, February, March, we're in a good roll. It's really common, in the second quarter of the year for things to just fall off. But if you're anything like me, as I was saying at the midpoint of the year, maybe you are having a bit of a reflection and thinking maybe now is the time to get back in action. Now is the time to build things up again. Now the time to get yourself back into where you want to be. And maybe you're thinking, look, second half of the year, now's time to go. I'm sure a lot of hikers out there in that situation. And I thought today it was really, really worthwhile having a chat about. So ultimately, if this does sound like you and you followed a bit of a similar route in your training, I have something for you. And I want to chat about something that I think will be really, really useful for a lot of people in this situation. Now, as you probably heard, if you are a long-term listener of this podcast, I have, and what I do day by day by day, beyond obviously just talking about training for hiking, I actually train hikers for their adventures. I have an online personal training program, which is called the Online Summit Program, which is specifically designed for hikers. And ultimately is designed to help hikers get fit, strong, and resilient for their adventures. Now, this particular program, it's all 100% delivered online. We help hikers all around the world, from Australia, New Zealand, the States, all through Europe, Canada, a few people in Africa as well, all around the world. And we help people in a whole bunch of situations. Ultimately, this program is really covered around three big things, which I think are so important for hikers. Number one, it covers personalized exercise programming, ultimately providing you with the workouts and exercises to build up your fitness, strength, and resilience for your adventures. But not just giving you any old standard template of workouts and exercises, but finding an approach which is personalized around you, your life, your situation. So you can fit it into your life, fit it into your time availabilities, work around what fitness or what limitations you may have, and find something that is 100% right for you. Now, the second pillar is education. If you listened to this podcast before, you would know there are so many other areas of that can be beneficial for hiking, aside from just training. So we do put a big emphasis into education around nutrition, recovery, mindset, pain prevention, hiking techniques, gear strategies, and a dozen other topics to help you feel comfortable and confident on the trail. And ultimately, we also do put a big emphasis in coaching and support, because we always know things come up and we always know weather gets in the way, time availabilities, you get sick, demotivated, whatever it may be. And we make sure you have the guidance and accountability to keep you on track. Now, over the years, this program has helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hikers in every situation imaginable, from the absolute beginner hikers who've never gone out on a full day hike to people who are going out and doing some of the toughest, longest, most difficult trails in the world, and every type of hiker in between. Because it is personalized, because it is individualized, it can meet anyone where it's at, as long as you are a hiker. So ultimately, if you did start off the year strong with your training, but you've lost a bit of momentum after a few months, or if you're feeling like the middle of the year now, it's time to revamp your routine and you want to get moving again, or you do have a big trip coming up in the tail half of the year and you're like, you know what, now is the time to get serious about my training so I can make this trip as comfortable and as enjoyable as possible, then this program might be a great option for you. And I would love to have a chat with you about it. Now, if this kind of sounds like you and you're like, you know what, I wouldn't mind learning a little bit more, the next step is all you need to do is go to summitstrength.com.au/apply. That's on our website, summitstrength.com.au/apply. Now, from there, you can book a quick call with our team. You can hop on a call. We can have a little bit of a chat, learn a little bit about your situation, and ultimately find if and how one of our programs may be right for you, your hiking, your goals, and your situation. So the call is completely free. There's no obligation, no pressure, but it's ultimately just a bit of an exploration to see if we might be able to help you, and then from there, if one of our programs may be right for you. So coming into the second half of the year, if you feel like now's the time to pull the pin, take some action, and get serious about your training, I would love to hear from you. Go to summitstrength.com.au/apply. I'll leave that link in the show notes below, and we can have a chat from there. So thanks for listening today. I hope there's not too many hikers in this situation who dropped off, but I'm sure there are quite a few out there. So I hope that can help. And also keep your eyes out for this next mini series going to drop. Hopefully it'll come out in the next month or so. And I think it's going to be really exciting. So thanks so much for listening to this quick episode. Have a lovely second start to the second half of the year, and we'll talk to you very, very soon. Bye.